and emerging African women leaders, and it's all about us talking about and discussing how we can support adolescent girls and young women to receive improved access to HIV health services. And in doing so, we will be addressing the barriers, we will be promoting engagement of adolescent girls and young emerging leaders as part of finding solutions to these barriers, but also as a group of female leaders jointly championing our set of priorities to improve access to HIV services for young women and girls across sub-Saharan Africa. So that is our purpose today. And the meeting today is co-hosted by the government of the United Republic of Tanzania and African Women Leaders Network, AWLN. A warm welcome to our high table. Please rise as we welcome our guests. Thank you. Yes, round of applause is warmly welcome. So joining us on the stage, we have with us Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, who is Minister of Community Development, Gender, Women and Special Groups. Welcome. We also have joining us His Excellency Dr. Donald Wright, U.S. Ambassador to Tanzania, Winnie Byanyima, Executive Director, UNAIDS, Rahma Suleiman Jumanne, who is one of our young women emerging leaders, who will also be speaking to us shortly, and Seema Bahus, who is the Executive Director of UN Women. A warm welcome to you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Please be seated. So, once again, an official warm welcome to Taking the Lead, our high-level meeting on championing the priorities of women and girls in the HIV response. So, just so that we're all aware, we have a small change of schedule to what we had previously planned, but don't worry, we are adaptable and flexible. So our keynote speech for today will be happening this afternoon, where we will be joined later on by the Prime Minister of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Kassim Majaliwa, who will be representing the President of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan. So that keynote address will happen this afternoon. However, we will proceed with our program and our very important topic today. And I will shortly be inviting opening remarks from Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, who will officially open for us this morning. So just to remind you, this meeting is all about improving access to HIV services and promoting gender equality and the gender equality agenda at large. And we are guided by the HIV/AIDS political declaration to end AIDS by 2030. So this is all through the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union's Agenda 2063, among several other milestone declarations. I'm very delighted to say that translation is provided for the entire duration of this meeting. So if you can see on your tables, there are some headphones, and if you wish to listen to or participate in this meeting in another language, we have English on channel 1, we have French on channel 2, we have Portuguese channel 3, and last but not least, Kiswahili on channel 4. So feel free to contribute in any of those languages and to listen in any of those languages. Thank you to the team providing that service. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to invite to the stage Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, Minister of Community Development, Gender and Children, to provide our opening remarks. Welcome, Honorable Minister.
Oh. It's there. Haya, habari za asubuhi. Even Donald, right? Honorable Ambassador, you say? Zuri? Makofi kwa mheshimiwa balozi. Let me try again. Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Now we are together. I was trying to search whether I'm in the right place or not. I now see I'm very comfortable that I'm there. Thank you very much. Welcome to Tanzania, to the United Kingdom of Swahili language. Yes. So let me acknowledge the presence of ministers of the similar ministry which deals with gender from Uganda and Malawi, and the other ministers who are present here today from different countries. Now, do you allow me to switch into Swahili? I believe there are translators here, are being paid so that to elevate our Swahili language today, isn't it? Yes, Kiswahili oye. Asante sana. Tambue uwepo wa Dr. Sima Bahus, mkurugenzi mtendaji wa shirika la Umoja wa Mataifa upande wa wanawake, na kama nilivyosema awali, natambua itifaki za waheshimiwa mawaziri wetu kutoka Uganda na Malawi na mawaziri wengine wote waliofika hapa kutoka nchi mbalimbali na viongozi wote wa serikali. Mheshimiwa Dr. Donald Wright, balozi wa Marekani hapa nchini Tanzania, pamoja na Bi Hodan Adu, mwakilishi wa UN Women hapa Tanzania, wakilishi wa serikali yetu kutoka wizara mbalimbali na taasisi mbalimbali, wana habari, watoto wetu wapendwa wa kike na wanawake wote mlioko hapa, ndugu wanahabari toka vyombo mbalimbali, mabibi na mabwana mliofika hapa, na wasalimu tena kwa jina la Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Ile salamu yetu ya jana ya watoto, nani anikumbushe? Wasichana wetu? Girls? No, that one in Swahili. You know we are talking here, but we are communicating with people at a very, very remote area of this country. So, yesterday tulikuwa tunasema ndoto, msichana? Abe? Haya, we try again. Ni msichana mwenye ndoto? Msichana mwenye ndoto? Mjitahidi sauti ziwe zinatoka au ndoto zenu na zenyewe zitapotelea hapo hapo. Asante sana. Namshukuru Mungu kutujalia afya na kuiona siku ya leo tukiwa na wageni kutoka nchi mbalimbali ambao ni mara yao ya kwanza kuja Tanzania, nasi tumewapokea kwa mikono miwili. Wageni wetu, asanteni sana, karibuni sana Tanzania. Naomba tuwapigie makofi. Leo hii tumekutana hapa kwa mwaliko wa mashirika ya UN Women, UNAIDS na PEPFAR kupitia program iitwayo Investing in Adolescent Girls and Young Women's Leadership and Voice in the HIV Response. Hili ni jina la program yetu. Program hii inalenga kuimarisha stadi za uongozi kwa watoto wa kike na wanawake vijana ili kuongeza ushiriki wao katika mapambano dhidi ya ukimwi. Kupitia programu hii, wasichana 185 kutoka nchi 15 ambazo ni Botswana, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Eswatini, Kenya, Lesotho, Malawi, Msumbiji, Namibia, Rwanda, Afrika ya Kusini, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia na Zimbabwe wameshiriki mkutano huu, ambapo watajadili pia mbinu za kutatua changamoto za VVU ambazo zinaleta athari miongoni mwa watoto wa kike na wanawake vijana. Washiriki wamefundishwa pia kupendekeza njia bora za utatuzi wa changamoto hizo. Hivyo tunatarajia mwisho wa kikao hiki tutapata sasa majumuisho ya maoni yenu, jinsi gani mmejadili kuhusu kuzipatia ufumbuzi zile changamoto zinazokabili eneo hili. Mabibi na mabwana, programu hii pia imeanzishwa kwa lengo la kujenga uwezo wa uongozi miongoni mwa watoto wa kike na wanawake na kuhamasisha wadau mbalimbali kuunga mkono jitihada za kuboresha huduma bora za afya kwa waathirika wa VVU miongoni mwa watoto wa kike na wanawake katika nchi zinazotekeleza programu hii. Mkutano huu unafanyika wakati ambapo dunia, bara la Afrika na taifa letu la Tanzania bado tunakabiliana na janga la VVU na changamoto zake. Kwa takriban miongo minne sasa, tatizo la VVU limeendelea kuwepo, kusababisha vifo na athari mbalimbali kwa ustawi wa jamii na maendeleo ya nchi zetu. Madhara makubwa yapo katika bara la Afrika na wahanga wakubwa ni kundi la wanawake na watoto wa kike. Mataifa yote yanayowakilishwa katika mkutano huu yameendelea kufanya jitihada kubwa ili kudhibiti maambukizi mapya na kutoa huduma bora kwa watu wenye maambukizi hayo. Jitihada hizo zimesaidia kuwepo kwa matokeo chanya ambayo yameonekana, hasa kupunguza kiwango cha maambukizi mapya ya VVU na vifo vitokanavyo na ukimwi. Mabibi na mabwana, programu ya kuunganisha nguvu ya watoto wa kike na wanawake vijana barani Afrika na kipekee hapa nchini imeanzishwa kwa kushirikiana na shirika la UN Women, mtandao wa wanawake viongozi Afrika AWLN na PEFA, na imelenga: moja, kuwawezesha watoto wa kike na wanawake wawe chachu ya kufanya ushawishi kwa njia ya kuzifikia serikali zao, taasisi na wadau wengine ili kuongeza upatikanaji wa huduma za VVU na afya kwa ujumla. Mbili, kubainisha vikwazo ambavyo vinawapata na vinapelekea watoto wa kike na wanawake kuathirika na maambukizi ya VVU, ikiwa ni pamoja na unyanyapaa, ukatili wa kijinsia, kutotambuliwa kwa misingi ya kijinsia, ukosefu wa haki ya afya ya uzazi salama, ndoa za utotoni na ukosefu wa fursa sawa za elimu na uchumi. Mabibi na mabwana, mkutano huu wa siku moja unakusudia kuwezesha mambo makubwa manne yafuatayo. Moja, kubadilishana uzoefu, fikra na ubunifu miongoni mwa washiriki juu ya namna ya kutekeleza sera na program kwa lengo la kujenga, kuimarisha na kuwezesha wasichana balehe na wanawake vijana kuwa viongozi katika mwitikio wa VVU. Mbili, kuonyesha nguvu ya uongozi miongoni mwa wanaharakati watoto wa kike na wanawake na kuwasilisha vipaumbele, mapendekezo na mahitaji yao katika mwitikio wa VVU kwa viongozi wao. Tatu, kuwa na makubaliano ya pamoja kwa masuala ambayo yanatokana na majadiliano kama nilivyosema, kuwa na maazimio yatakayotekelezwa na watoto wa kike wenyewe, ikiwa ni wajibu wa kila mmoja na wote kwa ujumla. Na uzuri hapa Tanzania, kwa upande wa watoto hawa wa kike, tunao scout wa kike, Girls Guide, lakini tuna mabaraza ya watoto ambapo tutawakuta watoto wa kiume na wa kike yapo, lakini katika mashule tuna kamati za ulinzi wa watoto ndani ya shule na nje ya shule. Kwa hiyo ni rahisi sasa kuwashirikisha hawa watoto waweze kuanza kulelewa kufikia haya majukumu. Swala la 4, uundwaji wa jukwaa la washiriki litakalowashirikisha wadau wengine kufanya uragibishi na utetezi wa mahitaji ya wanawake na watoto wa kike katika kukabiliana na maambukizi ya VVU. Niseme tena kwa Tanzania, mabibi na mabwana, tunamshukuru sana Rais wetu wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, Mheshimiwa Samia Suluhu Hassan, kwa kuona uzito, kwa kuona umuhimu wa kuandaa watoto wa kike na wanawake waweze kujisemea wenyewe, waweze kushika uongozi na kuleta ushawishi kwenye mambo yao ya msingi. Akaiunda wizara kamili ya maendeleo ya jamii, jinsia, wanawake na makundi maalum, na ikampendeza anteue mimi nije niisimamie hii wizara, na mimi nikafurahi sana. Ni mahala ninapopapenda sana. Watoto wa kike tuko pamoja na wanawake wote, lakini hatutawasahau watoto wa kiume pia. Na hata Mheshimiwa Rais ameshasema bila wanaume nao kwenda nao sambamba kupitia mlengo wa jinsia, we are planning to fail from the first chapter. So dear men, wanaume mpo, nanyi mpo kwenye wizara hii, ni sehemu yenu, maana watoto hawa ni mabinti zenu, hawa wanawake ni wake zenu. Lazima muielewe hii ajenda ili tuweze kufikia kuwapata wanawake walio bora zaidi, ambao watakuwa ni wake wa kesho wa wanaume hawa wadogo na wanaume wa sasa. Ni matumaini yangu kuwa maono ya Mheshimiwa Rais Samia Suluhu Hassan tutayafikisha pazuri kwa faida ya vizazi vyetu, lakini tutashirikiana Uganda, Malawi na serikali zingine zote kupeana uzoefu kupitia haya majukwaa, ili yale ambayo hatufanyi vizuri Tanzania tujifunze, na yale ambayo Tanzania inafanya vizuri kuliko eneo lingine basi tujifunze, kwa sababu tuna ajenda ya Afrika moja, na lazima watoto wa Afrika walindwe inapofika mwaka 2063 kwenye lile jambo letu la kufanya Afrika tuitakayo. Basi tuwe na Afrika itokanayo na nchi zote kuwa na viwango sawa vya malezi na makuzi ya watoto wetu, na hasa watoto wa kike, lakini bila kuwasahau watoto wa kiume. Ni matumaini yangu kuwa tutaendelea kushirikiana katika utekelezaji wa ajenda hii kwa maendeleo ya wanawake, watoto wa kike na mataifa yetu kwa ujumla, ili kuhakikisha tunapata matokeo tarajiwa. Kwa kusema haya, naomba niwakaribishe wageni wote nchini Tanzania, na niseme kwamba mkutano huu sasa programu yake iendelee, tukimsubiri Mheshimiwa Waziri Mkuu wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania anayemwakilisha Mheshimiwa Rais, atakuja kutoa remarks zake na maelekezo yake kama ambavyo tutakuwa tumefikia. Asanteni kunisikiliza. Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, for your opening remarks. I think you heard her mention we have 15 countries represented in the room and online. This is a fantastic convention and forum of people to be able to exchange and to overcome the challenges that we foresee for young women and girls. Before we go to the next speaker, I would just like to also recognize and acknowledge the presence of UN heads of agency, as well as development partners. I believe we have representatives from UN Women, UNAIDS, PEPFAR, and many others. So thank you for being here, as well as ambassadors from various diplomatic missions. You're all warmly welcome, and we're happy to have you here. So moving on to our next agenda item, it is my honor to invite up to the stage His Excellency Dr. Donald Wright, U.S. Ambassador to Tanzania, for his opening remarks. Welcome.
Thank you. Honorable Dorothy Gwajima, Minister of Community Development, Gender and Children. Ms. Winnie Biyanyima, Executive Director, UN AIDS. Seema Bahus, Executive Director, UN Women. Hodine Ado, Country Director, UN Women Tanzania. All the adolescent girls and young women leaders present here today, distinguished presenters, guests, all protocols observed. I am so pleased to join this meeting today. As the United States Ambassador to Tanzania, health, and in particular our efforts to reach HIV epidemic control, are among my top priorities. Today, I have a unique opportunity to rally around the most important topic of HIV among adolescent girls and women with some very distinguished and well-known guests of honor. Although she's not here, President Hassan, the leadership that she has provided through the National AIDS response, through the Ministry of Health, PROW, TAC AIDS, has been unwavering since 2003. I'd also like to specifically acknowledge the tremendous impact that the President's made when she reversed policy and allowing pregnant girls to return to school. Dr. Biana and Mrs. Bayu, your support and collaboration as development partners is notable both here in Tanzania and throughout the 15 countries that are represented in today's audience. However, I find it equally inspiring to be amongst so many brave female leaders throughout the region who are working to affect programmatic and policy change to ultimately end the HIV epidemic. This includes many beneficiaries themselves, some whom are our very own PEPFAR Dreams ambassadors from around the region. These women are HIV prevention champions and advocates for equitable HIV services for their peers and within their larger communities. As you may know, the United States President's Emergency Program for AIDS Relief, better known as PEPFAR, which was established in 2003, will be commemorating its 20th anniversary early next year. In 2014, the response to alarming statistics indicated that adolescent girls and young women were up to 14 times more likely to contract HIV compared to their male counterparts. The DREAMS program was established as a result of that fact. Like so much of our work, including the objectives that have drawn us here together today, DREAMS is a partnership. Together with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Girl Effect, Gilead Science, Johnson & Johnson, and Vivi Healthcare, PEPFAR is implementing DREAMS across 15 countries and has invested nearly $1 billion to date. We've reached millions of girls, lifted their families and communities, and positively impacted both current and future generations. I'm here today on behalf of PEPFAR Tanzania, but also on behalf of the Office of the Global AIDS Coordinator and Ambassador John Nakinasong, who has underscored the importance of reducing gaps in HIV prevention and treatment for adolescent girls and women as part of his 5x3 strategic framework for reimagining PEPFAR. He notes that adolescent girls and young women represent 52% of new HIV infections in sub-Saharan Africa, despite representing only 24% of the population. His rallying cry to address this inequity elevates the urgency of our work. This is even more important now in the face of the UN AIDS 2022 report, indicating that the AIDS response is in danger and the courageous actions are needed now to prevent millions of new HIV infections that will prolong the AIDS pandemic. The fact that all of you gathered here today is one of the many courageous actions that will put an end to AIDS. It's courageous because of the challenges before us, developing effective, sustainable strategies to address persistent gender inequalities, stigma and discrimination, gender-based violence, child marriage, and the lack of employment opportunities that continue to drive new infections among adolescent girls and young women is certainly no easy task. However, I can see that this group is up to it all. The United States government, through PEPFAR, is honored to partner with UN Women's, the African Women Leaders Network, UNAIDS, and the Global Fund to invest in, strengthen the leadership skills of, and amplify the voices of the next generation of adolescent and young women leaders. As you all know, DREAMS, as many things in PEPFAR, is an acronym. It stands for Determined, Resilient, Educated, AIDS-free, Mentored, and Safe. It's a fitting description of the young women leaders that join us here today, the leaders who are ensuring that their generation changes the course of HIV/AIDS epidemic. The conversation that will take place today are important to ensure that our plans to improve services for adolescent girls and young women are aligned for maximal impact by listening to the voices of those at the center of the program. I want to thank you for inviting me to join you here today. I look forward to hearing the outcome of your discussions. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much for your opening remarks. My key takeaway is the DREAMS acronym. Do we remember it? Determined, resilient, educated, AIDS-free, mentored, safe. Thank you very much. Thank you for those remarks. So moving on to our next speaker, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Winnie Byanyima, the Executive Director of UNAIDS.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister of Community Development, Gender, Women and Special Groups, United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, Ambassador Donald Wright of the United States, my sister Sima Bahous, Executive Director of UN Women, Rahma Selemane Juman, our young leader on the panel. I must recognize my leader, Her Excellency Gertrude Mongella, Mama Mongella, who led us at the 4th World Conference on Women. Thank you for being here. Honorable ministers in the room, distinguished participants at this conference, wandugu zetu wa Tanzania, hamjambo. Hamjambo tena. My greetings to Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, our sister who is leading this country and whom we wish so well. Her success is the success of every young girl here in Africa, in our region. Allow me at the outset to thank very much Tanzania, the government and the people of Tanzania, for the pledge you made recently of $1 million to the Global Fund to fight HIV, TB, and malaria. That demonstrated your confidence in global solidarity as the way to fight and win against these epidemics. Let me turn to this issue that's so close to our hearts of the rights of girls and women in Africa. That's what is bringing us here. Here in our region, in sub-Saharan Africa, adolescent girls and young women, and Ambassador of the United States has just touched on it. Adolescent girls and young women are more than 3 times as likely to acquire HIV as their male peers, 3 times more likely to be infected. And if we take it to the cohort of the young ones, teenagers from age 15 to age 19, in that bracket, 6 out of 7 new infections are of girls. So if you think of the girls and boys age 15 to 19, 6 out of 7 new infections will be of girls. 6 out of 7. Keep that in mind. And if you want to think about it more dramatically, an adolescent girl or a young woman in this region is infected with HIV every 3 minutes. In other words, by the time I sit down, if I don't speak as long as Comrade Fidel Castro, if I sit down in, say, 7 minutes, 2 young girls from this region will have been infected. That's how fast it's happening. It's a crisis. So I'm going to make 3 points. Before I make them, I will tell you, as you know, many of you, that I'm a daughter of this region. I'm born here in Uganda. I grew up there. As I was growing up, my mother was a club leader, women's club leader. So women from my whole village would gather in our compound once a week to meet. And she would, with the help of the community services, train them in craft making, childcare, life skills to manage their families and their children. And then they would also discuss. They would meet and also discuss. The one issue that was always discussed, and I was always in the groups with them, I grew up part of these groups. The one issue these women, our mothers, were fighting on was the education of girls. Women of my generation, we are standing on the shoulders of our mothers who fought for us to be in school. Yes, because when the education came by our colonizers, they were giving it to boys. They wanted boys to come to work in the civil service, to do jobs, to build roads, they were not giving it to girls. It's our mothers who fought for girls to stay in school. The second issue they were fighting on, and I remember this so well because my home was a hiding place, was to keep the girls in school and stop them from being married off as children. Early marriage, they were fighting that. My home was a home where a mother could bring her daughter to hide so that the men who have come to announce a wedding find nobody and cannot proceed with the wedding plans. She would hide little girls at home while negotiating with the father not to arrange a wedding. These were the issues of women, our mothers. Now, come back to today. So I am the product of that background, that history. I'm so aware that I'm a global leader today because there was a women's movement, women in the grassroots fighting on the question of giving us equal opportunity as boys to study, to be empowered, to live fulfilled lives. So I'm going to make 3 points here to address this question of the vulnerability of girls to HIV and what we need to do in order to protect them and give them the empowerment that will make them the strong girls and women of the future. How do we change these 3 things? 1 is to do and complete that struggle of our mothers of keeping girls in school from primary to the end of secondary. We haven't arrived there yet. This is a struggle we must continue and complete. And that's why we are so lucky to have Mama Mongela here. Because when she took us to Beijing in 1995, we African women who were there with her were fighting for the right, can you imagine, of primary education, equality, to complete primary education. At that time, girls were still not completing primary education because it was not free. We put in that Beijing platform the critical area of the girl child. It was put there by African women. Why? Because we're seeing the gaps for girls and boys critical. You cannot talk of empowering gender equality of women when they have lost out as children already. So we fought for that critical area, came out of Beijing, pushed governments, pushed international financial institutions like World Bank, IMF to give money, lend, support, rolling out universal primary education. In 10 years, we closed the gap on girls and boys in primary school. We closed that gap. But today, that gap is still there, a big one at secondary school level. It is still there. Our girls are still out there carrying firewood, fetching water, selling something on the road, herding goats, and that is where they fall prey to HIV. We know from our evidence at UNAIDS that when you keep a girl in school from primary to the end of secondary, that her risk of HIV will drop by up to 50%. School is the best protector of girls. It is the best. So we must roll out universal secondary education. This is the time now. We cannot wait. Some of these financial institutions say, but there's no quality yet. You don't have the labs, you don't have the best teachers, how can you roll it out? My answer to them is roll out, you'll put quality later. It's simple as that. Roll it out, put them in the four walls of a classroom and then work on quality. You can't keep them outside and have a few because you're building quality. This is the thing. So we are pushing for the rolling out of universal secondary education so a girl and a boy can go to school right up to the end of high school. And that way, they are all protected. They're in a safe space. We call this Education Plus initiative. We are supporting it. Many of us in the United Nations, we have 5 organizations pushing for this universal secondary education, but we are calling it Education Plus. And that takes me to my second point. Why Education Plus? What is the plus about? Now, so the first thing is keep all the children in school, make this, because school is the safest place to protect their health, to empower them. So we say plus because my second point is going to be about sexual violence, gender-based violence. Too often, these young women I mentioned who acquire HIV, they acquire it because they have been raped, because of unwanted sex. Sometimes also wanted sex, but a lot of unwanted sex. Or, so it may be the forceful act of a boy or a man, but also it is transactional sex. Let's face it, there is transactional sex. You do find little girls with even the consent of their mother going out to earn some bread by selling themselves. Poverty is causing desperate actions, coping strategies, such as allowing young girls or young women, even at the university, selling their bodies to get something that they need for their lives. So that economic vulnerability also leads to transactional sex. We must address it too. Now, let me tell you just one anecdote that speaks to how we are not touching this problem of sexual violence and addressing it at the root. Our regional director was in Cabo Delgado recently, and at a clinic, she heard from a doctor there that on average, 7 underage girls girls below the age of 12, 12 and below, were attending antenatal clinics pregnant each month, receiving 7 little girls, 12 years, 11, 13, attending antenatal clinic, coming pregnant. These cases, she asked, she says, so how do you deal with these cases? He says, well, we ask them to stay and get antenatal care and we support them to have their delivery. Only that, hello, a rape was committed as far as I'm concerned. A rape was committed. How do you have sex with a child of 12? So this is not treated as a rape case, it's treated as a case of pregnancy and she's supported to deliver. But you have not touched the problem. You have touched only a part of it. You have not touched the problem. So we need to gather the data. So when she asked and said, what about girls of up to 18? She said, oh, the doctor said, those are many. Every month I get maybe 20 under 16. So you're talking about a wide scale, a bigger problem than we are addressing. When she said, this is rape, the doctor said, no. Rape cases, I get about 3 a month. She says, what do you mean? She said, those come from the police. You see, those are reported by the police. In other words, rape is only counted as rape when you report to the police. But if it happens at the shops, in the garden or whatever, and parents keep quiet and maybe get a chicken or a goat to keep the peace in the village, the girl is pregnant, that's not recorded. So we have not touched the problem. We've got to get there. And so my second point is what we call, as one strategy, not the only one, we talk about comprehensive sexuality education. This is important. Thank you. Why is it important? It's important because knowledge is power. If this girl in school is taught about her body and how it works, how to protect herself from diseases, how to avoid pregnancy, this is her right. Then she can control her body. She can make the right decisions about her body. If she is going to engage in sex, she will know the risks involved. She will protect herself. This education is life-saving. We must have it in our schools. But we are not having it because partly we are to blame as the UN. I think the way we try to bring it shocks and annoys many people and they resist. But the truth is that the resistance is coming from traditionalists. They misunderstand the intention of comprehensive sexuality education and block it. By blocking it, they put our girls at risk. We must make it available. We must have our own teachers explaining, and they are usually women teachers, explaining to our girls about their bodies and how to protect them. So comprehensive sexuality education, we must convince traditional leaders, religious leaders, parents, teachers of its importance and introduce it in our context-specific way, but real way for our girls to learn about their bodies and to empower them to look after themselves health-wise. The third point is about masculinity, addressing, destroying toxic masculinities. Let's face it. Thank you. Let's face it. A boy must learn that a good boy is kind, is gentle, negotiates for sex, doesn't force themselves on a person. We have to teach that. So we have to pay attention to that issue because the reason we are having many rapes, unwanted pregnancies, is because many times men feel that to be a man, you must be violent, aggressive, and forceful. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. You can enjoy sex by being gentle and peaceful. Yes, you can. So we need to have these issues, these discussions to happen, and they must happen for boys at the age when they are young, not later. So we must tackle this in schools and in outside places. We must have church leaders feeling free to talk about sex. We must have mothers challenging their boys to be gentle. So this education about how to be a man, a good man, a developmental man, a caring man, a loving man is important. It's important. So let's go out there, and government should not leave it to civil society. They must put the resources there for organizations that want to educate. Yes, put the resources there. Let's work together to change our understanding of gender. Who is a man? Who is a woman? What is the role of a man? What's the role of a woman? What's the right behavior? So those are my 3 points about what we need to do to bring our girls to safety, to empowerment, to live good lives, to finish the struggle of our mothers. Keep them in school. Let us support our governments to put the resources down to roll out universal primary and secondary education. They are all in school. 2, in those schools, teach comprehensive sexuality education so that girls are empowered. 3, challenge toxic masculinities in schools, in workplaces, everywhere. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that very powerful remark. And I think just a key takeaway, although there were many, is really about keeping girls in school for their safety. We heard some amazing statistics around reducing risk of HIV by up to 50%. And yeah, creating that safe space for women and girls to be able to establish themselves. Thank you very much for your opening remarks. So just to remind you, this is a cross-generational, cross-sectoral event. What does that mean? It means we are empowering the voices of young emerging leaders as well as established leaders. And diversity is at the heart of that process as well. So I'm reminding you that we are speaking in many different languages. We have translation services, just for those that missed it, English on channel 1, French channel 2, Portuguese channel 3, Kiswahili channel 4. So feel free to contribute in any of those languages. And it is my great pleasure now to invite up to the stage a young female leader to give opening remarks. Yes, this is Rahma Suleiman Jumanne. Thank you and welcome.
Honorable Dorothy Gajema, Minister for Community Development, Gender, Women and Special Groups. His Excellency Donald Wright, Ambassadors of United States to Tanzania. Ms. Sima Pahos, Executive Director, UN Women. Ms. Winnie Bianyima, Executive Director, UNAIDS. Honorable Ministers, government officials, ambassadors, all protocols observed. Wanawake oye! Assalamu alaikum. I would like to acknowledge the program partners, the US President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, and Determined, Resilient, Empowered, AIDS-Free, Mentored, and Safe DREAM Initiative, the United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, UNAIDS, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, Global Fund, and the African Women's Leaders Network. The 15 program countries, Botswana, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Eswatini, Kenya, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Rwanda, South Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Dear ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rahma Seleman Jumanne, representing adolescent girls and young women from Eastern and Southern African countries. I would also like to introduce myself as a Speakers Bureau for the Education Initiative Plus and NAB Center, the joint program between UNAIDS and other potential stakeholders. With all the honors and respect, I would like to recognize all the outstanding young women, leaders in this room who have been part of investing in adolescent girls and young women in leadership and voice in the response of HIV and AIDS. If they can wave up their hands. We, the African young leaders, adolescent girls and young women in all of our diversity, representing 15 African countries, here today in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, for taking lead high-level meeting on championing the priorities of women and girls in HIV response. We recognize and value the efforts to lead advancement of young African women and girls' rights and gender equality in HIV response. Girls and women are still suffering from the effects and risk of HIV, gender-based violence, and all forms of discriminations from all levels of our communities. Parents and relatives are no longer trusted to effectively safeguard adolescent girls and young women. Health workers and media as well still judge and shame young people when they seek for help. As a result, youth-responsive health services remain a dream to most of us. Additionally, service provision is not guaranteed to a diversity of adolescent girls and young women, and mainly, most of them remain marginalized, especially people living with disabilities and those in prisons, as well as marginalized communities. Existing legal frameworks and policies from various sub-Saharan African countries are still discriminatory, outdated, and do not support girls and young women's rights and dignity in their diversities. Unequal gender power dynamics still manifest in different various settings, including higher learning education institutions and workplaces where girls and women remain marginalized as well. The group of young girls and women here today are living examples of the phenomenal leaders changing communities, regions, and Africa at large. We are all eager to change the narrative because we are the generation equality. We are the generation equality, accessing spaces we deserve for the generations we have and to the generations to come. My colleagues and I will all agree that this high-level meeting is one of the most innovative interventions to engage young people, especially girls and young women, meaningfully, but also have clear structures to continue supporting unleashed potential while creating sustainable impact in our areas of work and focus. Adolescent girls and young women are taking the lead in breaking barriers, challenging norms and practices in tackling the existing inequalities. These include certain cultural and religious norms representing a social injustice to adolescent girls and young women. Such effects and risks to HIV, gender-based violence, and inequalities. Providing a clear focus on creating sustainable enabling platforms to engage, build, and strengthening capacities to be able to speak out for ourselves and take initiatives to bring change in our capacities, builds our confidence in decision-making and bodily autonomy. It is therefore important for all stakeholders and policymakers to integrate combined interventions in HIV response, including meaningful involvement of adolescent girls and young women. Huu ni wakati mwafaka sisi kuwa mstari wa mbele kupigania haki zetu na kuonyesha uwezo, talanta pamoja na karma zetu kwa pamoja kwa nguvu na mshikamano. Kwa umoja wetu kama vijana viongozi, tunatoa wito kwa wasichana na wanawake wote sehemu mbalimbali duniani kupaza sauti zao kwa pamoja kupambania haki zetu. Tunaishauri serikali, taasisi za kimataifa na mashirika ya watu binafsi kushirikiana nasi kama wabia wakubwa na wadau katika kuondoa changamoto hizi na kutengeneza mipango endelevu na madhubuti katika kuwekeza kuwawezesha wasichana na wanawake kupata elimu bora, ujuzi, maarifa ya vitendo kupitia mifumo rasmi au nje ya mifumo rasmi, uwezeshaji kiuchumi na kuzingatia masuala ya kijamii na mazingira. Kwa kufanya hivyo, tutaweza kuongeza wigo wa kujitambua, kujikimu maarifa na kuwa na uwezo wa kujiamini zaidi. Mwisho, tunatoa shukrani za dhati za kipekee kwa mgeni rasmi, Waziri Dorothy Gwajima, kwa kukubali kutenga muda wake na kuja kuungana nasi siku ya leo kusaidia kutoa wito katika jamii zetu na jamii nzima kwa ujumla Afrika. Na kuzingatia jitihada zake, hii inadhihirisha kuwa haya yote yanawezekana. Tunashukuru viongozi wote, taasisi za kimataifa na kiraia pamoja na wadau wote. Tunatambua michango yenu na jitihada dhidi ya kupambana kuhakikisha tunatengeneza kizazi chenye usawa. Tunawapongeza na kuwakaribisha katika mkutano huu adhimu. Kwa wageni mtokao nje ya Tanzania, karibuni Tanzania, nchi ya amani, utulivu, umoja na mshikamano. Mungu ibariki Tanzania, Mungu ibariki Afrika. Asanteni sana, kazi iendelee.
Let's please give it up for Rahma once again. Thank you for those powerful remarks. We are here today to recognize emerging women leaders and established women leaders. We are so proud of you, Rahma. Thank you very much for your remarks. So we are now moving to our next speaker, and we are very, very honored to have with us Sima Bahous, who's the Executive Director of UN Women, who will now be giving her opening remarks. Welcome, Sima. Oh, this is too hard.
Honorable Minister Dorothy, His Excellency Donald Wright, Ambassador of the United States to Tanzania, Ms. Winnie Bianimi, my sister, Executive Director, UNAIDS, Ms. Rahma Saliman Jumane, our youth representative for the program, honorable ministers and government officials, ambassadors, distinguished guests, all protocols observed. Wanawake oye. Assalamu alaikum. It is an honor and indeed very humbling to be with you today. It is a pleasure to be with so many women leaders from every level and across generations coming together to focus on how we can elevate women's voices and priorities in the HIV response. It is also very heartening to see so many committed men amongst us. So welcome. It is humbling because the work is so needed. UNAIDS report tells us that every 2 minutes in this region, a young woman or adolescent girl is infected with HIV/AIDS. And every day, every girl and young woman affected by HIV and AIDS across the region struggles to have her needs and her rights known and to be able to address those with agency and voice. Allow me to thank, first and foremost, Her Excellency President Samia Hassan for her personal efforts and strong commitment to advancing women's leadership and amplifying the voices of girls and young women. I had the great honor of meeting Her Excellency yesterday, and she reaffirmed her commitment and that of Tanzania to tackle AIDS head-on and to continue to uplift women and girls' voices through equal opportunities, education, access to services, economic empowerment, and resilience building. I salute her and all Tanzanian women and girls for that. It is also very fitting that this meeting should occur on the 10th anniversary of the International Day of the Girl Child, a day in which we come together to confront the gender inequalities that impact girls and young women, a day when we celebrate the potential of girls and the future they hold, a day when the unique challenges and the opportunities of adolescent girls come into sharp focus. We need more young voices of girls and of boys in addressing the root causes of our common challenges. When we take steps against any factor of inequality, we take steps against them all. Excellencies, dear sisters and brothers, HIV and AIDS impacts the entire population. Major progress has been made over the decades, but rollbacks, as we have seen during COVID-19, show how fragile those advancements are. And as with so many challenges we face, adolescent girls and young women are disproportionately impacted, from discriminatory laws and social norms that put girls and young women at heightened risk, from violence and GBV against women and girls, to poverty, food insecurity, to disruptions in schooling and increased burden of care, and to restrictions on bodily autonomy and decision-making. A range of factors face women and girls, which only multiply the magnitude of the challenges brought by HIV and AIDS. Far too many adolescent girls are married early and have babies before their bodies are ready. Far too many adolescent girls report that school is not a safe place. In too many houses, girls wake up first and eat last. Yet, against all odds, girls and young women have also emerged clearly as leaders in the response to HIV/AIDS. And today, we are here to elevate this leadership even more and to celebrate it. For indeed, the leadership of adolescent girls and young women, including those directly affected by HIV, is indispensable in the continued fight against HIV, a fight that must be won and that will be won. It is the leadership of young women in all their diversity that matters. Adolescent girls and young women know the priorities and what are the priorities that are needed for the national response to HIV and AIDS. So let's listen to them, let's hear them, let's bring them to the table, and let's have them participate in the decisions we make. Excellencies, dear friends, a paradigm shift is needed, one that ensures the diversity of young women's voices, that they are included in leadership so that authentic and meaningful approaches to HIV are supported. In so doing, we can ensure that our collective voices and actions are as nuanced and inclusive as they are strong. These voices are present, yet as a force, these voices are insufficiently recognized, insufficiently institutionalized, poorly funded, and as a result, less consistent than they should be and less effective than we all need. Excellencies, my sisters and brothers, that is why today we call for national coordinating bodies, for national dialogues, and for community-led processes to strengthen the platforms that they have by deepening their engagement with adolescent girls and young women's voices. also by deepening their engagement with young men and boys. And to see women and girls as integral, central partners in our collective efforts on HIV and AIDS. We must institutionalize practices that guarantee, protect, and respect the right to effective participation of girls and young women, so that their voices can be heard, their agency recognized in the decisions that directly affect their lives. This is the pathway to HIV programs and strategies that uphold human rights and leave no girl or no young woman behind. Friends, we heard just now from Sister Winnie that we must confront toxic masculinities and we must address it. We need to educate our boys and men. And yes, of course, we need to do that. We need to end impunity for sexual violence. We need he for she champions, brave men and boys to step forward and step up as true supporters of gender equality. We must redefine masculinity. A more gender equal world benefits both women and men, both girls and boys, and also benefits whole societies. At UN Women, we strongly believe that every step in this direction is a step for the health and future of women and girls, and towards the collective promises we've set forth through generation equality. For this reason, I am pleased to salute and commend the President of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Hassan, for agreeing to co-host the Next Generation Equality Forum in 2023. I applaud this commitment and this leadership, and thank you, Tanzania. Excellencies, colleagues, as we head towards the day's important deliberations, let me share 4 actions that we see as priorities at UN Women to elevate the voice and agency of women and girls in the context of HIV. First, we need to clear the way for adolescent girls and young women to access health services, particularly HIV and sexual and reproductive health services, so that all adolescent girls and young women have the information, services, and the resources they need to live empowered lives in society. Second, we need to address heads-on the challenges young women are facing that make them vulnerable to violence, inequalities, stigma, and discrimination, while also urgently expanding their decision-making spaces. Third, we need to invest in young women's organizations and in young women's movements. We have seen their power during COVID-19 response. We have seen real stories of success in Ireland, in Argentina, in Mexico, in realizing crucial gains in reproductive rights. We have seen how young women's strong voices ensured their priorities were reflected for the Global Funds grants in Zimbabwe and Uganda. And we are seeing results through the activism of adolescent girls and youth in generation equality. And of course, we have seen successes, we have heard great voices and continue to hear here in Tanzania. And finally, we must change the narrative. We must transform norms so women, including young women, are accepted as leaders and given access to more effective platforms. We must facilitate spaces, provide opportunities, and learn through intergenerational exchanges so that young women can lead more effectively today. I am reminded of the words of a young activist I met during this year's United Nations General Assembly. Simply and directly, her plea was that we all stop saying that young people are the future. Young people, especially young women, are here now. They are shaping the present in intergenerational approaches. So young people are both our present and our future. We have the means at our disposal to help elevate the voices of women in all their diversity and across generations, to make a difference in the fight against HIV and for equality in health. Let us all come together to elevate their voices, to engage their agency for transformative results, not only for a future of equality, but for a present of rights, of participation, and above all, for progress. Excellencies, dear sisters and brothers, as we continue this important discussion, from UN Women, I want you to know that we hear you and that we are here for you, and we are here with you. Let us together accelerate progress on HIV with all women and girls at the center. Let us accelerate progress together today. Thank you. Asante sana.
Thank you, Seema, for your opening remarks. That was Seema Bahous, Executive Director, UN Women. Thank you very much. 4 key calls to action we heard there. Number 1, clear the way for women and girls to access health services. Number 2, let's address head-on the challenges around vulnerability and come up with solutions together, vulnerability and gender-based violence as well. 3, embrace and invest in organizations that are helping emerging women leaders to have a voice. So we should provide those spaces and allow for that dialogue to be happening and for those movements to occur. And last but certainly not least, changing the narrative and transforming norms. This is a constant work in progress, but something that we all have to be part of. Thank you, Seema, for those opening remarks. So yes, round of applause. I'm also reminding you that we have a lot of people who are in the room with us, but you can't see them because they're online. I think they can see us and we can't see them, but please, I just want to acknowledge all participants. I think we have over 100 people online who are joining from the other 14 countries that are part of this meeting and will be contributing to this, to our dialogues further during the day. So please do acknowledge them and remember that they are with us. And I would also like to ask all young women leaders in the room who are representing all those online to please stand up so that we can also see you and appreciate you. Yes. Fantastic. So these are our emerging leaders, represented by Rahma on the stage, but we're all here together. I'd also like to acknowledge the African Women Leaders Network, who are also part of this meeting. And I know that they have a really fantastic model. They have a co-chair model with an established leader, women leader, and an emerging. So we've got there Mary Rusimbi and her co-chair, Hadija. Welcome. Thank you all for being here today. And we look forward to hearing more from you throughout the day. So just to remind you, there's a little bit of a change to our program. We will be having our keynote speech from the Honorable Kassim Majaliwa, who is the Prime Minister of the United Republic of Tanzania. He will be stepping in on behalf of the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, who unfortunately cannot be here today, but we will be hearing from the Prime Minister after lunch. So we will move that keynote speech to after lunch. So I hope that's okay with everybody. And thank you very much to our opening speakers this morning. We really appreciate you. Please don't go away, as we would like to take a couple of photos. So if I could ask, I'm gonna ask for a little bit of an organized situation. I trust we can do this. So when I call you up, if you're in the relevant group that I call up for a photo, I will ask you to come up these stairs and to stand behind our speakers for the photo, and then to go down on the other side of the stage, and I'll invite the next group up this way. Does that make sense? So this is the order of events. So group number 1, could I please invite to the stage any government representatives, ministers, permanent secretaries, or anybody from any of the 15 governments mentioned to please come up to the stage for our official photo. Everyone else, you can take a picture of them or maybe a selfie. Remember, our hashtag is taking the lead, hashtag taking the lead. It's International Day of the Girl Child. Don't forget to post and share your reflections. Welcome. So this is government representatives, ministers, permanent secretaries, or anybody stepping in on behalf of any of the 15 countries or governments of the 15 countries. Find a space, make sure you can be seen. Photographers, are we ready? What can we say that gives us a smile? Ladies. Okay, the next group I'll be calling up, get ready, will be all of our emerging leaders, young women leaders. Please come up to the stage this way. Thank you very much to the government representatives. If you are an emerging women leader, please join us for the photo. And so that we're ready, group 3 will be UN and development partners, including ambassadors. So please be ready, don't run away. We want you in the photo. A fun one has been requested. Okay, let's do a fun one. That's everybody. What are we doing? Who's leading us? Yes, okay, there we go. Fun one. 3, 2, 1, fun one. Fantastic, thank you. Thank you very much. So group 3, could I please welcome UN representatives, or anybody from the United Nations, development partners as well, and ambassadors that are present in the room. You are warmly welcome. Please come up the stage this side. And then as we wait for them, the final group we'll have is the African Women Leaders Network, the co-sponsor of the event. So we would like all AWLN representatives who are here today to join us for photo number 4. Hang on, there's a few more coming. Don't take your picture yet. There's like I can see 3 or 4. There's some space on the other side, I think. Oh, they mix.
We have 2 groups. Ask the UN to step down. Only the development partners.
Okay.
And then you can call the UN later.
We'll do one together and then, yeah.
So the UN out. United Nations out.
So we'll do development partners first and then United Nations separately. So, because there's a lot of people here. So development partners. Thank you all for your patience. You know, if you don't get the picture, it means you weren't there, right? So we gotta get the pictures right. Okay, development partners. Please use all the space. There's some space here. So UN stay put, we're coming back. Okay. Smile. Thank you, development partners. Oh, there's a couple more pictures to be taken. UN is coming back in a minute. Hold on, don't sit down. Thank you very much. Can you exit that side of the stage, please, development partners? And UN, if you could rejoin for your photo. Anybody from the UN, please join us on the stage. I know it's a lot of pictures. I promise you this is the second to last. Okay, I think we're all here. This is the UN. A big smile from you all. Wonderful. And last but not least, can I invite the African Women's Leadership Network? Anybody with AWLN, please come to the stage. If we can exit that way, and okay. And join us on the stage this side. This is AWLN, African Women's Leadership Network, or Leaders Network. Welcome. Lots of reunions happening on stage. It's lovely. We need another chair. Okay, please look at the camera. Wonderful. Beautiful memories being made, and we haven't even begun. Thank you very much. Thank you all. So we are going to take about a 10-minute health break. Please don't disappear. We will be coming back together to continue with the next segment in our agenda, which is the intergenerational dialogue. And this is looking at the future of the HIV response and the important role of established and emerging women leaders. So we're going to be having a discussion after the health break. So thank you all for your time, for your attention and your positive energy. And a huge thank you to our, if I can get your attention, please, we're not finished yet, to our speakers and our opening speakers. Okay. Before we leave the room, I have been reminded to remind you that there is a reception this evening that will be at 7 p.m. here at the Serena Hotel, I believe, outside. So any of the ambassadors or members of this group who are leaving the session now, we hope to have you join us again at 7 p.m. in the garden for our reception this evening. Thank you very much. I think I've lost you to the health break. So please, can we be seated within 10 minutes, meaning we are back at our seats at 11 a.m. sharp, ready to proceed with our intergenerational dialogue. Please, can we also be upstanding and give a round of applause to our opening speakers and thank them for their energy, time, and wisdom. We had with us Honorable Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, Minister of Community Development, Gender, Women, and Special Groups. We had His Excellency Dr. Donald Wright, U.S. Ambassador to Tanzania, Winnie Byanyima, Executive Director, UNAIDS, Rahma Suleiman Jumanne, who is a young woman leader, yes, and Seema Bahous, Executive Director, UN Women. Thank you all very much, and see you in 8 minutes.